This is the Ica Desert in southern Peru, one of the driest places on the planet. And this is the same place 9 million years ago, an ocean. And living in it was Livyatan, a sperm whale with biting teeth set into both jaws, upper and lower. No sperm whale alive today has that. It was as long as an articulated bus, and each tooth was the size of a forearm, built to grip several tons and not let go. An adult orca, which today is the ocean's largest predator, is 26 feet long. Megalodon went past 52, twice that, and Livyatan reached 57. And sharing that same water was Megalodon, the largest shark that ever existed. Its teeth were broad and serrated along the entire edge, built to cut flesh with bone inside it. No shark and no dinosaur ever came close to that tooth. The largest Megalodon tooth stops at around 8 inches. Livyatan's reaches 14, almost double, and the largest biting tooth ever described for any animal that has ever existed. And the two hunted the same thing. Megalodon comes up from below and tears off the fin. Livyatan closes its mouth once and shakes. And there is a rule that holds almost everywhere on the planet. Top predators are rare. Energy is lost at every step of the chain, so the top is always narrow. And it wasn't only those two. That same stretch of coast held 4 top macro predators at the same time, when most ecosystems support one.
And this isn't the age of marine reptiles. It's 9 million years ago, with mammals at the top.
And the current that filled that sea with food is still running today. It's where a good share of the sardines sold in cans comes from. And the water there helped nobody defend themselves. It was cold, green, and full of plankton, and suspended plankton blocks light. A school of fish turns inside that haze and tightens up. Something big passes underneath and opens a hole in the middle of it. In a sea like that, seeing far is worth nothing. What's worth something is the ambush, and the attack coming from below. The capabilities gathered there form a catalog of what a predator can be. A bite built never to let go, a serrated tooth that cuts bone, a body that produces its own heat.
That sea wasn't dangerous because it had monsters. It was dangerous because it had too much food.
What made a single stretch of coast dangerous enough to fit 4 top predators into it, and how we know, bone by bone, who ate whom. Megalodon teeth turn up in deposits on practically every continent. Its map is the map of the world. And the sea that matters here was a narrow strip pressed against the west coast of South America, running down from Peru to northern Chile. And that is where the greatest concentration of large predators the ocean has ever had was. And to understand who was dying there, you can build this chain from the bottom up. The first name is a letdown. At the base is a hand-sized fish, a relative of the sardine, in schools that darken the water. One step up come penguins and turtles. In the shallows there was also something nobody expects in a sea like this: sloths. Actual sloths, with claws, walking on the bottom, and their presence explains the rest. They thickened their own skeletons. The bone became more compact and more swollen, working like a diver's weight belt. There are 5 species in sequence, 1 in each layer, each a little more aquatic than the one before. Nowhere else in the world pulled a land mammal into the sea like that. And the densification was so systemic that the largest animal in that ecosystem by span came from above. A bird with a wing bigger than a compact car glides over the upwelling zone, hung on the constant coastal wind, without flapping. When the shimmer of the school rises, it drops low and closes its beak on a fish that slips. The same school was being attacked from below and from above at the same time. One step further up come the seals, and it wasn't just one kind. One has an elongated rostrum and delicate dentition, consistent with fish. The other has a robust jaw and teeth, consistent with hard prey. 2 different specialists in the same deposit indicate niche partitioning, the classic sign of tight competition. Not even the seals fit on the same menu. There were too many hunters for everyone to eat the same thing. And right below them is what was easy to catch. A penguin is a package of fat weighing about 10 pounds going down after the same school. A turtle passes by slowly, trusting its shell, except armor that solves the problem of a 10-foot shark makes no difference at all against a 50-foot one. In that sea there was no such thing as enough armor. Above the seals, the whales, and here comes another inversion. They were small. A small body in an extremely rich environment allows you to grow fast and reproduce more often. They probably weren't trying to get too big to be eaten. They were trying to reproduce faster than they were being eaten. It's what a population does when it's being consumed too fast to grow. Between them and the top there was still a mid-level predator. Acrophyseter, a hunting sperm whale the size of a van, with a short rostrum and strongly curved front teeth. That is the anatomy of grabbing and holding a medium-sized vertebrate, not of sucking in squid. In any other sea, it would be the top predator. There it was, the third.
And notice that we haven't even reached the top of this chain yet. And there are already 3 different hunters.
And it hunted seals. Picture a van with the teeth of a giant sea lion coming out of the murky water beneath a group of seals descending after the school. There's no long chase, there's one grab, one twist, and a seal that stops moving. Then it goes back into the green haze, which is where it works best, and waits for the next group to come down, above the sardines, above the penguins and the turtles, above the sloths grazing on the bottom, above the specialized seals, above the small whales and the sperm whale that hunted seals. 2 names at the same ceiling at the same time. Livyatan, with a skull as long as a compact car, and Megalodon, with teeth that cover an adult's palm with room to spare. The 2 in the same water, feeding on the same school, crossing paths with some frequency. Now compare that with the 2 at the top. Livyatan ran from 44 to 57 feet, and Megalodon was around 52 by the most accepted calculations. Both step out of the range that fits the entire ecosystem and never come back.
And here, I need to warn you about something before the entire internet yells at me.
There is not a single fossil that records contact between these 2 animals. The showdown between them is an internet invention, not a scientific result. What the researchers proposed, and this part is defensible, is that they were competitors for the same resource, 2 companies fighting over the same market. And Megalodon shared that sea with 8 different families of sharks and rays, recognized from more than 3,500 teeth. None of them came anywhere near its size.
And the question left over is how a single piece of sea managed to feed so many things capable of killing.
The answer is the wind. It blows parallel to the coast and pushes surface water out toward the open sea, and what rises to fill the gap is deep, cold water loaded with nitrate and phosphate. Fertilizer, basically, arriving in the layer where sunlight still reaches. Then the diatoms explode. It's a microscopic alga that multiplies until it stains the water and it becomes food for small things, which become sardines, which become the fuel for everything with a spine there. It isn't a sea with a lot of food. It's a machine for manufacturing food, plugged into the wind. And when the machine switches on, you can see it from far away. The water changes color and turns opaque with algae, and within a few days the school appears underneath it. Birds start gathering at the surface. Seals arrive. The whole sea converges on the same patch, and that patch is just the mark of where the wind blew. And here's the detail that turns abundance into danger. To sustain several top predators at the same time, the base has to be absurd, and it was. A strip of water running from the surf out to a few miles offshore, so full of fish that the water darkens underneath. Thin-snouted seals cut through the inside of the school. Penguins dive for the same fish, at the same instant, from the same side. Dolphins come in from below and close the ring.
The violence at the top wasn't an accident. It was a symptom of plenty at the base.
A sea fills up with predators when the base is rich enough for all of them to fit together, and that's all it is. And it's that density, not the size of any one of them, that supports the case for the most lethal sea ever recorded. A comparison, not a published result.
Three things turn this ecosystem into a trap, and none of them is simply being big.
The first is Livyatan's tooth, which works like a stake, not like a blade. Conical, with an extremely deep root, covered in enamel, and functional in both jaws. That geometry cuts badly, but it resists torsion and traction, which is what happens when you bite an animal of several tons that is trying to escape. In that sea, being bitten once was already the end. And the mouth opened about 6 feet by 4 feet by 1.2. Among teeth built to kill, that is the largest the planet has ever produced, and it belongs to a direct relative of the animal that today eats squid by suction. The second factor isn't a tooth, it's a hole. The temporal fossa is where the muscle that closes the jaw anchors, and in this animal, it is comparable to an orca's. It's like looking at the engine mount to know the car's power. Translated, an orca's bite, in a body more than twice the size. In practice, that means its hunt was short. It got close in the murky water, opened a mouth wide enough for a grown person lying down, and closed it once. One high-energy bite, and then the shake. It starts and ends in the same second, and the whale on the other end probably never even got to turn its body. The third factor is on the other side of the sea, and it's a completely different solution. The shark's tooth is broad, triangular, and serrated along the entire edge. The serration concentrates force at points and starts the cut. The wide base keeps it from breaking when it meets bone. It's a tool for cutting soft tissue with bone inside it. Livyatan held on. Megalodon removed pieces. Two different solutions for killing the same prey, in the same sea, which is the exact description of a fin. The shark grazes along the flank of a small whale, shakes its head sideways, and the piece comes off whole. The water around it changes color, and the turbidity, already high, becomes a wall. The animal that lost the piece is stuck there, surrounded by water that hides where the next one is coming from. The largest white shark measured in that study closes its mouth with about 4,000 pounds of force. Megalodon, by the modeling, reaches 24,000 to 41,000. That's almost 10 times more, and it beats any theropod ever modeled. And even so, the authors warn that the number underestimates the damage.
But this shark's most important weapon probably wasn't in its mouth.
It produced its own heat, and that was measured, not deduced. The temperature was recorded in the enamel of its teeth, and compared with sharks from the same layers, there is a thermal excess left over that can be attributed to metabolism. Warm muscle contracts and digests faster. Picture it crossing a front of cold water that would make any other shark in that sea slow down. It goes in with its body already warmed, passes beneath the school, and comes out the other side at the same pace, while the rest of the community waits for the water to improve. It's the difference between an engine already warmed up and an engine on its first start on a cold morning. In a cold sea full of competitors, that decides who eats.
Almost every extinct food chain is deduction. This one left a receipt.
At almost every fossil site, who ate whom is inference. Not on this coast, there are bones there with the tooth mark inside them, and that is what makes it possible to test the case instead of just asserting it. A small whale, identified down to the species, was bitten by a serrated tooth, and the mark stayed on the skull and on the rest of the skeleton. The same happened with seals. It's the first record of that kind of bite in the entire southern hemisphere, and the authors themselves say that in this material, there's no way to distinguish predation from scavenging. One way or the other, it's physical proof that whales and seals were being opened up there. In practice, it went like this. The whale is small, and it's together with others on top of the school. The shark comes up from below, at the angle where its silhouette disappears against the dark bottom, and it doesn't go for the trunk, it goes for the tail. The first bite removes the ability to swim. From there, it's no longer a fight, it's a disassembly, carried out on the predator's schedule. In any other ocean, this would be a rare event. There it was routine, and we can calculate how much the biggest of them ate. According to the three-dimensional model, the stomach held about 2,600 gallons, the volume of a small water tanker truck, and could take a 26-foot prey animal whole, consumed in 5 bites.
8 meters is the size of an orca. Today's largest ocean predator would have been a 5-bite mule deer.
Except that the most efficient predator in this ecosystem probably had no teeth at all, and the evidence for it is precisely the absence of marks. The two places where this same ecosystem shows up preserved are separated by more than 800 miles of coastline. That's roughly the distance between Porto Alegre and Salvador, with the same fauna at both ends. At a site to the south, more than 40 skeletons of large animals, whales, sperm whales, seals, aquatic sloths, predatory fish, appear in 4 distinct layers, within a window of 10,000 to 16,000 years. None of them shows any sign of trauma. Harmful algal blooms produce a neurotoxin, which builds up in the filter-feeding fish at the base of the chain. Whatever eats those fish gets the concentrated dose, and the higher the trophic level, the larger the dose. Organ failure comes within hours. It's the most economical hypothesis, even though no algal cell has been preserved as proof. And the detail closes the argument. The higher the animal was in the chain, the larger the dose it received. In that sea, being at the top was the worst place to be. It's the same red tide that closes beaches today, operating on a geological scale. First the fish start coming up, then the birds stop flying properly. And then, over the course of a few days, animals of several tons float belly up, with their bodies intact, and the current pushes all of them onto the same stretch of beach. Not even the top of the chain escaped. And this is where geography comes in. The shape of the coast funneled the floating carcasses into a sheltered tidal flat, and storm waves deposited the bodies above the high tide line, out of reach of the sharks. Behind that beach, the desert began, so on land there was nothing to eat them either. Then came the sand, and the whale that dies far from the beach doesn't enter that count. It sinks slowly, disappears from the light, and settles on the bottom, and there it becomes the center of an entire community for decades. Each of those carcasses is an oasis that lasts longer than a human life, except that the bottom of that sea was poor in oxygen, and a bottom without oxygen has few burrowers. Almost nobody showed up to take the body apart, and that's why so many skeletons reached us whole. It's what makes it possible to count this sea bone by bone, something almost no other ancient ocean allows.
Practically every image you have ever seen of this shark is out of date, including the documentary ones.
This package of rock covers 15 to 2 million years, stacked into 2,100 feet of thickness. And Livyatan comes out of a narrow band, at around 9 million. That's enough stack time to show that the most violent phase lasted millions of years.
E tudo isso importa por motivo só. É o que define o tamanho do maior predador que esse mar já teve.
A shark's skeleton is cartilage, and cartilage barely fossilizes. Teeth, on the other hand, are replaced throughout life, and a single individual scatters thousands of them across the seafloor. Reconstructing this animal is reconstructing an entire car from a stock of used brake pads, and that's why the size of this sea's largest predator is still disputed. There are only two relevant partial vertebral columns, one in Belgium and one in Denmark. The Belgian one has 141 vertebral centra from a single individual, 36.5 feet of spine, and an estimated age at death of around 46 years. The classic method took the height of the tooth crown, compared it with the proportion in living white sharks, and extrapolated. Except that extrapolating outside the range of the data amplifies the error, and the white shark may not be the right template.
And the actual conclusion of the same work points to the opposite side of the number that became the headline.
Instead of assuming white shark proportions, they measured the relationship between spine, head, and tail across a large set of species and applied the average to the Belgian column. The body that comes out of the calculation is more elongated, similar to a lemon shark. So the right silhouette is a different one, a longer and thinner animal, with a proportionally smaller head, moving in a more continuous and less explosive way. It crosses the field of view and disappears, and what's left is the impression that the thing never ended.
An animal like that doesn't disappear by accident. And the prime suspect is a third of its size.
Before the suspect, the motive. A warm body is expensive. It burns energy even at rest. A cold-blooded animal gets through bad months by lowering its metabolism. A large endotherm doesn't have that option. The fixed cost runs every day. The second dependency is the nursery. Shallow deposits concentrate small teeth, consistent with pups. Warm, shallow water offers small prey and excludes the large adults, including those of its own species, potential cannibals. A daycare whose function is to stay away from the parents. A 52-foot megalodon burned 98,000 kilocalories a day. That's what an adult human eats in 40 days, stacked into a single day. And after taking down a 26-foot prey animal, it could go up to 2 months without needing to hunt again. And the pup was already born at around 6.5 feet, the size of an average adult white shark. The end of the Miocene got colder, and the Pliocene built ice caps. Water locked in ice is water that leaves the ocean, and sea level dropped. When the level drops, the first thing to disappear is the warm, shallow shelf, exactly the nursery strip, and lost coastal habitat doesn't come back within the lifetime of a large animal. Picture an adult crossing the same coast it knew, looking for the warm, shallow bay where it had been born, and finding a line of exposed rock and deep water there. It doesn't die that day, it keeps hunting, keeps burning the same energy. Except that the prey is also following the water that changed, and the next generation's nursery has ceased to exist.
And while the math was going negative, a much smaller competitor showed up.
The modern white shark appears with serrated teeth around 6 million years ago, and spreads across the world at around 4 million. Megalodon's extinction, meanwhile, was revised from 2.6 to 3.6 million years, and that 1 million years of difference changes the entire explanation. With the old date, the extinction coincided with a hypothesis of a cause coming from space. With the revised date, It coincides with the spread of a much smaller shark, and isotopes in the enamel show that the two were feeding at the same level. It's the distance between blaming space and blaming the neighbor, and the point is still disputed. In the end, the largest biting predator that ever existed was not defeated by anything it could bite, crush, or drive off. It faced a global drop in temperature and the end of a specific kind of shallow water. It wasn't that the sea became too dangerous for it, it was that the sea became small.
The current that sustained the most lethal ocean in history is still there, switched on, working in exactly the same way. What changed wasn't the engine, it was the passengers, and today the top of that chain is occupied by much smaller animals. The next time you open a can of sardines, remember that it came from the most dangerous sea that ever existed.